In the beginning, there was the world, and the world was not kind. It did not care for the small hairless apes that shivered in its vastness. It was a crucible of ice and stone, a testing ground where a single degree of temperature, a single missed meal, a single misplaced footstep, was a death sentence. This was not a world made for us. We were interlopers, and our entire story, your entire existence, hangs on a fragile, unbroken chain of cause and effect that began here. In the unforgiving cold of for hundreds of thousands of years, the Earth was locked in the grip of ice ages. This was our stage, a world where the very air was a blade, where the search for food was a daily obsession that dictated every movement. They walked through valleys carved by glaciers, beneath skies often gray with the promise of snow. They knew the scent of petrichor on dry, cold earth, the taste of fear on the wind, and the crushing silence of a landscape that offered no comfort. Variables, the hunt and the gathering. For days, sometimes weeks, they would track the great herds, the mammoth, the woolly rhinoceros, the giant elk. This was not sport. It was a high-stakes gamble with life itself as the wager. A single charge could crush a hunter, ending his story in an instant. But the cause was undeniable. The need for protein, for fat, for the calories that fueled their shivering bodies and sharp minds. The effect of a successful hunt was more than just food. It was bone for tools, sinew for cord, and hide for warmth. It was life, purchased with courage and coordinated effort. And when the great beast eluded them, they gathered. They learned the secrets of the land, which root could be pounded into flour, which berry brought nourishment, and which brought an agonizing death. This knowledge, passed from mother to daughter, from elder to youth, was their library, their pharmacy. It was the quiet, patient counterpart to the violent drama of the hunt. But they were not at the top of the food chain. In the darkness, eyes glowed. The cave lion, a predator of immense power, stalked the same valleys. The saber-toothed cat with daggers for teeth waited in ambush. Every trip for water, every foray into the forest was a potential encounter. The cause of their fear was tangible, the guttural growl in the night, the sudden crack of a branch. The effect was a hyper-vigilance etched into their very DNA. To be alone was to be vulnerable. To be caught off guard was to be cold. And then they stole a secret from the heavens' fire. It began with a cause as random as a lightning strike, but it was mastered through observation and will. The effect was revolutionary. Fire was heat, a defense against the crushing cold. Fire was light, pushing back the predatory shadows of the night. Fire was a gathering place, a social hearth around which stories were told and bonds were forged. And most importantly, fire was a cook. It unlocked nutrients in meat and plants, fueling the expansion of the very brain that had learned to create it. In this world, the individual was fragile. The tribe was immortal. The cause was simple interdependence. The hunter relied on the gatherer for sustenance when the hunt failed. The young relied on the old for wisdom and memory. The strong protected the weak, knowing that tomorrow roles could be reversed. This was the first contract, the first society. Shared food, shared warmth, shared watch duties in the dead of night. Their unity was a weapon. Their cooperation was a shield. A shared language of grunts and gestures evolved into stories, plans, and warnings, the first lines of defense against oblivion. Their minds were their ultimate survival tool. They looked at a piece of flint and saw not a rock but a future blade. They saw the cause of a sharp edge and understood its effect on flesh and sinew. They devised the atlatl, the spear thrower, an extension of their own arms that allowed them to strike from a distance. They studied animal migration, learned to read the weather in the clouds, and turned the landscape itself into a trap. They were not just fighting for survival, they were strategizing for it. They were learning to impose their will upon a resistant world. There were times when the chain nearly broke. Fossil records whisper of catastrophic population crashes, a particularly brutal winter, a disease that swept through the tribe, a drought that drove the game away. The cause could be any one of 1,000 natural disasters. The effect was always the same, a desperate fight against the dying of the light. Entire bands vanished, their stories erased by the wind and snow. They stood on the very precipice, staring into the abyss of extinction, their future, our future, hanging by the thinnest of threads. Yet here we are. The legacy of their endurance is etched into our very being, in our drive to explore.